What if a single foggy morning decided the fate of Europe? As the mist clears, Marshal Grouchy marches his 3 corps east to intercept Blücher's Prussians before they can reinforce Wellington. Grouchy's forces engage Blücher's rearguard near Wavre, causing critical hours of delay that prevent the Prussians from arriving at Waterloo in time to support Wellington's weakening line. Without timely Prussian reinforcements, Wellington's Allied center at La Haye-Saint begins to falter under relentless French pressure, thinning reserves and creating dangerous gaps in the defensive line. Seeing the weakening Allied center, Napoleon commits his elite Imperial Guard in a massive column assault, their bearskin hats visible through the smoke as they advance with terrifying precision. The Imperial Guard smashes into the weakened Allied center at La Haye-Saint, breaking through the thin red line with disciplined volleys and bayonet charges, causing panic to spread rapidly. With their center ruptured, Wellington's Allied army begins a disorderly retreat toward the coast and Ostend, abandoning artillery and supplies as French cavalry harasses their fleeing columns. The Duke of Wellington barely reaches a waiting ship at Ostend, escaping capture as his army disintegrates. A stark contrast to the orderly withdrawal he had planned for a victorious defense. Napoleon rides into Brussels in triumph that very evening, the city bells ringing as he dismounts at the Hôtel de Ville, already drafting terms for the defeated coalition powers. The Congress of Vienna, still negotiating the post-war map of Europe, dissolves in chaos as its delegates flee or surrender. Unable to redraw borders with Napoleon victorious and entrenched in Brussels, King Louis XVIII and the Bourbon royal family pack their belongings in the middle of the night, fleeing Paris for exile in England as news of Waterloo's defeat spreads through the capital. Dawn brings wild celebrations across Paris as illuminated windows display imperial eagles. Crowds fill boulevards singing La Marseillaise, and the empire's legitimacy feels suddenly unshakable. Behind the festivities, marshals like Ney and Soult meet in private rooms, discussing the fragile nature of this victory and the political challenges of sustaining an empire built on constant war. Napoleon launches an immediate diplomatic offensive, sending envoys to split the coalition, offering Austria influence in Italy, tempting Russia with Poland, and isolating Britain through naval concessions. Cannons roar from the Champ de Mars as crowds surge through boulevards, waving tricolors and shouting Vive l'Empereur. The air smells of gunpowder and victory, a stark contrast to the recent despair of abdication. Napoleon stands on the Tuileries balcony, accepting laurels while marshals exchange wary glances beneath the surface jubilation. Louis XVIII slips from the Tuileries at midnight, carriage rattling toward the Loire as loyalists melt into the night. The vacuum of legitimacy yawns wide. No king, no clear successor, only rumors of émigrés gathering in Ghent. Loyal officers burn documents in courtyard braziers, erasing traces of the brief restoration. In smoke-filled backrooms of the Palais Bourbon, Ney and Soult trade coded warnings over diluted brandy. Grouchy's late arrival saved the day, but his ambition now threatens the emperor's peace. Each man weighs loyalty against advancement, knowing Napoleon rewards success but punishes hesitation with icy silence. Talleyrand's ghost haunts the Quai d'Orsay as fresh envoys race to Vienna, Berlin, and St. Petersburg with urgent dispatches. Austria hears promises of Lombardy, Russia eyes Warsaw, while Britain receives only silence. A calculated isolation designed to fracture the coalition before it reforms. Metternich's agents whisper in Milan cafes, trading imperial favors for Venetian gondoliers' loyalty. By autumn, Austrian flags fly over Brescia and Bergamo, not as conquerors but as guarantors of independence. A sovereign Italy buffered between French ambition and papal hesitation. A buffer Metternich envisioned in his sleep. We upload videos like this every day. Subscribe so you don't miss out. Television. In Warsaw's ruined palaces, Russian officers oversee plebiscites where Cyrillic ballots already await in sealed barrels. The duchy dissolves. Congress Poland emerges. Its diet neutered. Its armies sworn to the Tsar. Nobles who resisted find their estates confiscated. Their children sent to St. Petersburg as polite hostages. Whitehall falls silent as French notes go unanswered. The Admiralty keeps frigates in Channel ports, not for battle but to watch. Wellington broods at Apsley House. His victory turned to ash. While Liverpool's merchants fret over continental markets suddenly closed to British textiles and colonial sugar. From Lisbon notaries to Warsaw magistrates, imperial commissioners distribute leather-bound copies of the Code Napoleon, replacing feudal customs with clear statutes on property, marriage, and inheritance. Lawyers train in Paris. Judges are sworn in by prefects. Within a decade, a Parisian notary's act holds equal weight in Lisbon's Alfama district. In Lisbon's Alfama, a widow signs her late husband's deed under the code's equal inheritance clauses. Shocking neighbors accustomed to male-only succession, notaries explain the articles in lilting Portuguese, their quills moving across parchment with new-found uniformity. A legal revolution quieter than battle but deeper in its roots. Outside Warsaw, a Jewish merchant disputes a debt with a Christian innkeeper under the code's secular courts, where oaths are sworn on law, not Torah or gospel. The verdict surprises both. Debt upheld, but costs shared. A precedent that slowly erodes confessional barriers in trade. One ledger entry at a time. By 1825, a lawyer trained in Paris can plead identically from Cadiz to Königsberg, citing the same articles on contracts and torts. Local variants persist in folklore. But the imperial courts speak only the code's language. A linguistic and legal unity that binds the continent more tightly than any Habsburg marriage alliance ever could. The Code Napoleon is no longer imposed. It is internalized. From Stockholm notaries to Sicilian judges, its principles shape daily life, marriage, commerce, inheritance, creating a common legal language that outlives battles and emperors. This quiet revolution proves more enduring than any battlefield triumph. The revolutions of 1848 erupt across Europe. Paris, Vienna, Berlin burn with liberal fervor. Barricades rise in the streets. Napoleon's unified imperial gendarmerie mobilizes rapidly. Discipline and centralized command crush the scattered uprisings. Resistance falters. Instead of liberal parliaments, nationalism is absorbed into imperial bureaucracy. Ambitious men serve the emperor, not constitutions. Loyalty is rewarded. State-directed monopolies accelerate industrialization. Railways spiderweb across the continent, moving troops and goods at unprecedented speed. Unity is forged in steel. The telegraph network expands rapidly, but its first priority is not commerce. It serves the secret police, transmitting whispers of dissent before they become shouts. Across the Atlantic, the American experiment observes with growing unease. Without a successful European democratic model, its own ideals seem fragile, isolated. Without the inspirational example of European liberal triumphs, pressures within the Union build along different fault lines. The path to disunion shifts, accelerates. The absence of European reform movements alters the slavery debate. Economic and states' rights arguments gain new urgency, less countered by global liberal momentum. Imperial preoccupations in Europe changed the American calculus of westward expansion. Native nations and Mexican territories face different diplomatic and military pressures. The push for a transcontinental railroad accelerates, but its route and control become fiercer battlegrounds. Imperial interests in Europe influence American corporate lobbying. Back in Europe, every innovation, rail, telegraph, early industry, is harnessed primarily for imperial control. Progress serves power before it serves the people. State-directed monopolies dominate key industries. Coal, steel, shipbuilding. Efficiency gains flow to imperial treasuries and armies, not to worker wages or consumer choice. Despite economic growth, worker unrest simmers beneath the surface. Strikes are illegal, unions banned. Discontent finds no legal outlet, only dangerous secrecy. The secret police flourish, fed by telegraph reports and railway mobility. They infiltrate societies, not to stop crime, but to prevent any organized challenge to imperial authority itself. By the 1850s, Europe is unrecognizable. United under imperial law, bound by rails, watched by wires, nationalism feeds the empire, not fights it. The butterfly has landed. The 20th century begins without the cataclysm of World War I or II. Napoleon's victory at Waterloo prevented the chain of alliances that led to global conflict. Europe evolved along a different, imperial path. Instead of ideological blocs, a Cold War emerges between three imperial powers: Napoleonic Europe, Tsarist Russia, and British maritime hegemony. Each seeks global influence through economic and technological supremacy. Technology serves the state as atomic energy powers the imperial capitals of Paris, St. Petersburg, and London. Nuclear reactors light up grand boulevards and palaces, symbolizing imperial might and scientific achievement. Surveillance algorithms, developed decades ahead of our timeline, predict dissent before it forms. Imperial police use early computing machines to analyze citizen data, preventing uprisings through preemptive intervention. Every technological breakthrough, from railways to atomic energy, is first harnessed for imperial control. Innovation serves stability and state power, not individual liberty or market forces, shaping a unique technocratic autocracy. State-directed monopolies accelerate industrialization, and railways bind the empire together from Lisbon to Warsaw. These iron roads move troops and goods with efficiency, reinforcing imperial unity and economic integration. The telegraph network, while connecting the empire, serves the secret police first. Messages are monitored and analyzed for signs of dissent, making communication a tool of surveillance as much as connection. Across the Atlantic, the American experiment watches nervously. Without a European democratic model to inspire them, the Union fractures under different pressures, evolving into competing regional confederacies rather than a single nation. In this 2024 of gilded autocracy, democracy survives only as a forbidden philosophy. Imperial courts glitter with wealth and power, while dissent is whispered in encrypted networks, a ghost of the road not taken. Democracy persists not in parliaments or protests, but in the shadows. Citizens exchange ideas through forbidden texts and early digital networks, keeping the dream of self-rule alive beneath the imperial surface. This world is a ghost of the road not taken. A reminder that history hinges on moments like Waterloo. The empire endures, but the question lingers. What might have been if the fog had favored Wellington instead? Hi there! If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe. Smiling Face with Smiling Eyes Part 2 is dropping tomorrow. Subscribe for notifications. Loudspeaker.